welcome to Whispers of Ink. I'm Machado de Assis, and now I will read one of my stories.
Let's start with the book 11 Years Later, which is part of my novels collection. Chapter 1. It was on the Ouvidor Street, around 2 in the afternoon, when two men suddenly shouted each other's names. Alves. Moreira. As soon as those voices broke through the noise of the street, the two friends ran toward each other and threw themselves into a powerful hug. They slapped each other's backs, laughing and smiling like two boys who had just met again after a long time apart. And all of this in the middle of the city, in broad daylight. Can it really be you, Alves? And you, Moreira, after 11 years? Was it 11? Or maybe 10? 11, I'm sure. It's been 11 years since we last saw each other. I left Rio in 1860, and... to enjoy life, you lucky dog. Oh, not really. Not much at all, I must say. That's impossible. But it's true. I did have some fun, sure. I mean, unless you're some kind of hermit, it's hard not to enjoy Europe. But if you knew why I left Brazil... What happened? I'll tell you later. Let's talk about you now. Are you married? Yes, for 5 years now. Any kids? None. Free as a bird. And you haven't been to Europe yet? Not yet, but I'm getting closer. You know, a lawyer like me, who didn't inherit any money, needs to save a little first. That's what I'm doing now. Phew, it's hot today. Let's get something to drink. Just being here with you is enough, said Moreira, offering his arm to his old friend and walking with him toward Carceler's place. Both were clearly happy, talking non-stop, walking side by side. They looked about the same age, maybe 30 to 33. Both were thin, not too much, and almost the same height. But Moreira dressed better, more carefully, with a certain Parisian style that Alves simply didn't have. Inside the shop, Alves sat down and ordered a pineapple ice cream, which he ate with great pleasure. Moreira, on the other hand, didn't order anything. He just watched his friend and smiled. They started telling each other everything that had happened in the 11 years they had been apart. Alves had less to say. Most of his story was about his marriage, which had been unusual. There had been no romance before the wedding, no love story, nothing like that. It had just happened. Alves was a lawyer, a sharp and well-spoken man, and he often visited the home of Donna Mariana, a widow fighting a strange and unfair lawsuit. A wealthy man, worth 500,000 reais, was trying to take from her a small house worth only 20,000, claiming some distant legal right. Alves took her case and won it easily. He had a way with words, and judges listened to him. One day, after the final verdict was delivered, Alves returned to Donna Mariana's house to give her the good news. She greeted him warmly, then pulled him aside and said, "Doctor, if only the bonds of family could tie us together, as the bonds of the heart already do." Alves stepped back, surprised. Donna Mariana stared at him, clearly waiting for a response. He had to say something. "My dear lady," he whispered, "I would have no doubt in accepting your offer, if my heart were not already given to another. Donna Mariana sighed softly. You know, of course, Alves went on, that such matters require the heart to be in agreement. He paused, gathered his courage, and continued. Still, your affection could mean a great deal to me. And though I cannot have the honor of being your husband. At this, Donna Mariana's eyebrows shot up into two perfect arches. Her mouth formed a round O. She looked at him in stunned silence. Alves, confused by her shock, now wore a face full of questions. Then came the explanation. No, doctor, she said finally. It was not for myself that I spoke. I meant my daughter. I've noticed how you look at her, and I only wanted to see her happy. Alves let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He smiled, and his voice softened. I do care for her, he admitted. To marry the lovely Donna Eulalia would be the greatest fortune of my life. She may not be far from that, Donna Mariana replied. Really? I believe so. The good old lady fell silent for a moment. She spread her arms as if letting out a sigh, which floated aimlessly in the air. Despite the wig she wore and the cough that tormented her, she said to her future son-in-law, You were wrong to think I ever had that intention. I never meant to marry, and I never will, as long as I remember my dear Tiburcio, who is now in heaven. I've had proposals, of course, more than once, not even many months ago. But a widow of 40 shouldn't marry, she added, even though she was actually 58. What good would it do me now to tie my days to some young man? He'd grow old quickly, and he'd stay in the prime of his life, repaying my love with coldness and disdain. Dr. Alves only remembered this summary of what Donna Mariana had told him, and even that had taken no less than 18 minutes to say. The reason for his forgetfulness was clear. His thoughts were now only about Eulalia. He loved the young woman in secret, and had never confessed his feelings, because she always seemed indifferent to him. His plan had been simple. Once the trial was over, he would stop visiting the house altogether. Imagine his surprise, then, when Donna Mariana made him this proposal, just as all his faint hopes had quietly died away. 2 days later, the good old lady told Dr. Alves that Eulalia was ready to marry him. I won't tell you, said Alves. Finishing the story he had just summarized, the same one he told to his friend at the dinner table at Carcela's house. I won't say that Eulalia was wildly in love with me. There wasn't even real passion. But there was kindness. And my love did the rest. We got married, and today, I believe, I am happy. My mother-in-law passed away a few months later, and being the good soul that she was, she thanked me for giving her daughter the happiness she deserved. She asked me to always be a model husband. Moreira listened to the whole story with the kind of curiosity you feel when a friend tells you something personal, especially after not seeing each other for 11 years. He didn't have to share any wedding stories, but he did talk about casual love affairs he had while traveling in Europe. That doesn't mean his life had no serious moments. There was one, but it happened before his trip. Which one? Alves asked. Oh, old stuff, Moreira replied. You never told me anything from that time. I couldn't. Back then my heart was broken. That was why you left Brazil. But what really happened? What do you think? Love? Love? You? Yeah, why not? Moreira said. It had to happen to me someday. I was in love with a girl. She was almost 17, still a teenager. And she loved me too. I really wanted to marry her. I told my uncle and my mother that. But they both said numero they wanted me to marry my cousin instead. I kept pushing. They kept saying numero finally. To escape the whole mess, I decided to leave and travel the world. I bet you forgot all about her the moment you landed in Europe. Oh no. I thought about her for about 15 more days. Then strange things happened, and I completely forgot her. Completely. Believe me. If you ask me her name now, I'm not even sure I could remember. Still the same old you. No, not really. I've changed a lot. The conversation kept going like this for much longer than either of them expected. They dug up many old memories, taking turns to share. Both had a lot to say. Eventually, they said goodbye, not without some effort. Alvis really wanted Moreira to come over for dinner, and Moreira wanted to go. But there was a problem. His uncle, Commander Pinto, was waiting for him at home. So they had to part ways. Moreira walked home feeling genuinely happy. He hadn't expected to run into an old friend like Alves, not after so many years apart. For a moment, as they said goodbye, he felt like the past had come back to life. "See you tonight?" Alves had asked. "Maybe," Moreira replied. "Well, at least come have dinner with me tomorrow." "Sure. See you then. Goodbye." Goodbye. It was a simple exchange, nothing dramatic, but it left Moreira in a better mood than he'd had in days. As he walked, he thought about the years gone by. Back then, they had been close drinking together, sharing secrets, and even dreaming about the future. Now, they were two grown men, each with their own life, their own worries. Still, seeing Alvis again brought something back. But only 10 or 12 minutes passed before his thoughts took a different turn. As he approached the carriage he had hired, he suddenly stopped, hand on his forehead, as if struck by a sudden thought. "Eulalia," he whispered to himself. Wait a second, wasn't she also named Eulalia? The driver, who had been waiting patiently, heard this strange muttering and gave Moreira a confused look. The man had one foot on the carriage step and the other still on the ground, lost in his own world. The driver began to think maybe he shouldn't take this customer anywhere. Just as he was about to ask if everything was all right, Moreira finally climbed in and sat down. "To the Atorado," he said. The driver didn't respond. He gave the horse a light whip and started moving. Inside the carriage, Moreira sat quietly, eyes fixed on the passing streets, but his mind was far away. He had truly enjoyed seeing Alves again. But what excited him even more was the thought of seeing Eulalia once more. He remembered her well, her kindness, her sadness, the way she used to look at him. Could it really be the same woman? Or was it just a coincidence of names? As the carriage rolled forward, Moreira began imagining different ways their reunion might go. Some thoughts were innocent, others less so. He even imagined what he would say, how he would act, what she might feel when she saw him again. Before he knew it, the carriage had reached the end of the Atorado. But Moreira didn't live there, he lived near the gas company. He had to go back. When he finally got home, he found his uncle already waiting for dinner. They ate together, as they often did, and after the meal, while he relaxed and digested, well, leave him alone for a while. Meanwhile, Alves had gone home, where his wife had been waiting for him. Dinner was already on the table when he arrived. Midway through the meal, he realized he should explain why he was late. "I ran into someone today," he said. "An old friend. Someone I hadn't seen in 11 years. His wife looked surprised. "Where did you meet him?" "In the street," he replied. "He just came back from Europe on the last ship. We talked for a bit. He said he might stop by tonight, and he'll definitely come for dinner tomorrow." His wife listened quietly, curious but not overly so. And so, two men, once close, now separated by time and distance, found each other again only to go their separate ways once more, each carrying a different hope for what this meeting might bring. Eulalia listened to her husband's words with a quiet unease. But her discomfort grew when he added, "You'll really like Moreira." Moreira. 11 years. Europe. These 3 words alone told the reader everything. Clearly, this man was no stranger to her. If she had any doubts before, she had none now. Had she been beautiful at 17? Probably. At 28, she was undeniably stunning. Time had shaped her into a woman of poise and grace. Her beauty was the kind that grew stronger with silence and calm. Eulalia was often serious, almost sad, always lost in her own thoughts. She had always been gentle with her husband, kind even, but never passionate or cheerful. Alves didn't notice the effect his words had on her. He kept talking about Moreira with the same excitement as before. "But why was he away for so long?" she asked. "Oh, he must have done well for himself," Alves replied, slicing a pear and watching the blade move. He didn't see the look of quiet tension on her face. They sat in silence for a moment. "The reason he left was actually pretty strange," Alves said suddenly. "What reason?" "A love affair." Oh. "But it didn't last long, from what I heard," Alves said. "Must not have been that strong." "Just one of those youthful things," she said softly. She didn't say anything else. Alves didn't notice how still she had become. The rest of the afternoon passed quietly. That evening, Moreira arrived, just as he had promised. The reader can imagine that, despite the 11 years gone by, and the changes in his life, Moreira must have felt something stir as he stepped across the lawyer's threshold. It was not love, but curiosity. However, that curiosity was not satisfied as quickly as he had hoped, because Eulalia did not appear in the room. For half an hour, the conversation between the two friends was one of the most boring in the world. It was not the lawyer's fault was doing all the talking, but Moreira only responded with short words and little effort. Finally, Eulalia showed up. If neither of them had been warned about the meeting, it would probably have led to one of those dramatic moments that hint at unexpected disasters. But both were prepared. Their encounter caused no exclamations. What did happen, though, was a strong impression on both of them, stronger in her than in him, or perhaps just different. In Eulalia, it was mostly the memory of the past that came back. In Moreira, it was admiration for what he saw now. The gentle girl he had once known now stood before him as a beautiful and impressive woman. That feeling took over everything else. Along with a certain desire he had to appear deeply affected, this changed the Moreira of the evening from the one who had been there in the morning. Alves noticed the difference and thought it was simply due to the natural shyness any man might feel in front of a former love. Still, Moreira went on to tell a few stories made up once about his travels through Europe. All of them were meant not only to show off his refined lifestyle, but also to make it clear to the young woman that her image had stayed with him everywhere he went. Alves noticed how the tone and content of the stories had changed. But even that made sense. Could he really tell his wife about the adventures he had mentioned so casually that morning over coffee? Obviously not. "You rascal," the lawyer whispered to him once, when Eulalia had stepped away from the group. "If anyone hears you, they'll think you're some kind of saint." And never had a nickname fit a man better than this one did for Moreira. He truly was a scoundrel, a charming one, perhaps, but a scoundrel all the same. Moreira sat in his uncle's house by the Adorado, slowly sipping his coffee. He had just come from Alves' dinner, almost 2 months ago, and his mind kept going back to that night. He thought about Eulalia. He thought about how she had not shown up at first, and how he had almost given up. But then, just when he least expected it, she had walked into the dining room like a ghost from the past. He told himself, "It's clear I still feel something for her. Not a lot, just a little. A cold kind of feeling that doesn't cloud my mind or take away my calm." Back then, the next day, after that first visit, he had gone to Alves' house again. He had been nervous, maybe even more than the day before. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was because he thought he saw a spark in her eyes. Maybe it was because he wanted to see it. The curious reader might wonder if he was wrong about her. Well, that night, Eulalia didn't come out to see him. She said she had a headache and went to bed. The dinner was quiet, not at all what the two men had hoped. But then came dessert. That's when she appeared. She walked into the dining room, pale and smiling, and both men stared in shock. Moreira, though, felt joy more than surprise. He looked at her and thought, maybe that fire I once lit in her heart hasn't gone out after all. Was that true? That night, it was too soon to say. But 15 days later, anyone could see that the 11 years she had spent away from him had not erased her first love. He saw it in her eyes. And deep down she had known it all along. She had read it in her own heart long before he did. But for a woman like Eulalia, honest, careful, and full of duty, this was a cruel fight. She loved her husband. He still loved her as much as he did on their first day together. And above all, she knew what she owed to him, to her life, to her name. She suffered in silence. No one guessed how hard it was for her. Her face stayed calm, even when she felt pain inside. She smiled for everyone, but kept her tears for the quiet hours, alone. Moreira, now older and perhaps a little wiser, tried to understand his own heart. He told himself he didn't love her too much. Just enough to notice, not enough to lose control. He was a man who had lived many lives. He had left Brazil, seen the world, and come back. He had once believed he loved Eulalia with all his soul. But time had cooled that fire. Now, he felt only a shadow of it. Still, he could not forget the way she looked that night. The way she had come in, soft and sudden, like a dream that won't let go. And as he drank his coffee, he thought again. I do care for her. Not much. Just a little. He didn't hate her. In fact, he was almost sure she still loved him, maybe even as much as before. And it was clear she had married only to please her mother. If she hadn't gotten married, he probably wouldn't have taken this step. Now, though, he had no plans to marry unless it was for business reasons. But who could stop him from loving her? Or from being loved in return? Who could stop them from being happy together? He took a sip of coffee and kept talking. Alvis won't like this, that's for sure. But I don't have to tell him anything. In fact, it's smarter not to say a word. Then he thought about his conscience. Another sip of coffee. My conscience keeps reminding me that he's my friend, and that I've been his friend, maybe still am. But there's an old saying, friends are friends, but business is business. He's the one who made the mistake by marrying a girl I loved. Everything that happens now is just a consequence. Moreira finished his coffee, lit a cigar, and seriously considered writing her a letter. He closed the bedroom door, picked up his pen, and started drafting the letter you were about to read. Eulalia, who would have thought that 11 years later we'd find ourselves in this situation? For me, it felt like 11 centuries of suffering. I wandered far from the place where you lived, the place where my only happiness ever existed. I won't tell you the whole sad story of these bitter years. You already know the pain. Yes, I dare say you suffered too because your eyes still show it. My heart tells me that you still love me. And just as I never forgot you, I believe you never forgot me either. Oh, what if it were different? What if, after all this time filled with pain and loss, I found your heart cold and empty of love? I swear to you, Eulalia, I would kill myself. It was cruel enough for fate to separate us. That alone was too much, but I could have endured it. He looked at the letter again and thought it was just right for the situation. You don't need me to point out the difference between a monologue and a letter. You probably noticed it yourself. Moreira didn't waste time copying the letter. He wrote it in his most emotional and trembling handwriting. Then he sealed it and put it in his wallet. Just as he finished, someone told him that Alves had arrived for a visit. Moreira went to greet him with a big smile on his face. You must think it strange that I'm here after all those broken promises, said Alves, as soon as he saw his friend appear at the door. Well, yes, it is a bit strange. Just a sudden idea. Oh, let's hear it then. We're going to Petropolis this Saturday. Want to come with us? Saturday? Yes. I'm not sure if I can go, but I'll try my best. Try, Alves said, rolling his eyes. Anyone listening would think you're working on some big case. Maybe I am. I imagined as much. After thinking for a moment, Moreira said, All right, I'll go. Well, I'll go on Saturday. I'll only be there for about 15 days, Alves explained, getting up and grabbing his hat. I'm using my vacation time. I had to come to São Cristóvão anyway, so I thought I'd stop by and invite you. Are you coming Saturday night? That's likely. That was final, dear reader. He had no other plan. She was definitely going Saturday night. And as for the trip to Petropolis, he thought from the start that it was a great idea. The 3 days flew by quickly. By 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, The three of them were already on the boat. The boat left, arrived at Maua, and then they caught the train. The trip to the city finally happened, without any major incidents. Well, almost. There was one small incident. At the train station, while Moreira saw his friend chatting with someone else, he noticed a handkerchief had fallen from Eulalalia's hand. He picked it up and handed it back to her. Eulalia thanked him with a small nod of her head. She took the handkerchief and felt something strange inside it. It was a piece of paper, probably a letter. Her face turned red. Without a word, she took her husband's arm and walked away. During the journey, Moreira tried several times to catch Eulalia's eye. Only once did their eyes meet, but hers were so full of fear that she quickly looked away, turning her gaze back to her husband. He smiled at her with the same kindness and love he always showed. For Alves, true happiness came from seeing his wife happy. To him, her joy was the greatest treasure in the world. The next morning, the three of them went for a carriage ride early. The weather was perfect. But what surprised Moreira wasn't the lovely morning, it was Eulalia. She seemed unusually cheerful, more joyful than he had seen her since they met again. That change surprised even her husband, though his surprise came with even more pleasure than Moreira's. The vacation was starting well. Everyone seemed happy. So happy, in fact, that Alves began acting like his old self again, talkative and playfully nosy. "Why are you staring at those girls?" Alves asked his friend, noticing Moreira's eyes drifting toward a group of young women. "Me?" Moreira replied, while at the same time looking over at Eulalia. "What's wrong with that?" Eulalia asked, smiling at her former lover. Moreira was stunned. What did that mean? Was it a tease? A complaint? He couldn't figure it out. He was lost in thoughts and guesses. The ride was full of small moments like that, moments that felt somehow mysterious and hard to understand. The afternoon, meanwhile, went better. The young woman was unusually kind and affectionate toward him, which, in the eyes of the lovesick Moreira, raised her value by 100%. But what about her reply to his letter? It's impossible, thought Moreira, that her answer is nothing more than these sweet gestures. They're lovely, sure, but not enough for me to know whether she truly accepts what I told her. I must have a real response no matter what. Thinking this and writing a short note took the same amount of time. The new letter contained only these words: "My life. What answer will you give me? Must I die or live? Let death come if it must, but without pain. Yours, always yours, M." He slipped the note quietly into the young woman's lap. She trembled again and blushed. Alves, who was facing away, saw nothing. Moreira then walked over to him and asked if he had already read that day's Jornal do Comércio. They began to talk about an article discussing some ministerial matter, something Moreira didn't care about at all, but pretended to debate with great interest. They were in the middle of this conversation when Eulalia let out a small cry. Alves turned quickly and went to her side. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing, just a sudden pain," she replied. Alves knelt before her, placed his hand on her chest, and felt her heart beating faster than usual. "Are you better now?" he asked. "Yes." "Go rest." "No, it's past." Saying this, she fixed her eyes on her husband, whose face showed clear worry. "It's nothing. she repeated. And to prove it, she stood up and offered him her arm. Together, they walked to the garden. Moreira joined them, pretending to be deeply concerned about her health, though he was secretly surprised by the episode. The note he had given her couldn't have caused such a reaction. It was the first letter that had done it. Besides, the letter was already hidden, because he didn't see it in her hand. 1 hour later, they returned home. Eulalia went to her room, and Alves followed her. Moreira went back to his hotel, where he had rented a small room. What on earth was that? He asked himself. It didn't seem natural. But I can't figure out what the reason might be. Let's wait for her reply. It's impossible that it takes too long. The afternoon passed, but no letter arrived. The next morning, right after breakfast, Moreira went to visit the lawyer. Alves had already left. Moreira found Eulalia alone in the living room. She shivered slightly when she saw him. Eulalia, he said, his voice trembling with emotion. He was about to continue, probably saying something passionate and intense, when a lady appeared at the door, a friend of Eulalia's. Moreira silently cursed the interruption and left soon after. An hour later, he returned to Alves' house. This time, he found him at home and received the news that Alves planned to return to the capital the next day. Already, Moreira said, clearly surprised by the sudden change of plans. It's necessary, Alves replied. I have urgent business in the city. Are you staying? Maybe. In any case, I need to talk to you. I'm at your disposal. We'll meet this afternoon. Moreira left shortly after. The girl is smarter than I thought, he kept thinking, or maybe I'm the luckiest man alive. Most likely, she'll stay. She has friends here. I'm also a friend, and I'll stay too. Based on this fragile assumption, Moreira built a whole castle of hopes. He spoke absent-mindedly to everyone he met and went home to wait for his friend. The friend didn't keep him waiting long. Moreira was just thinking about him when Alves appeared at the bedroom door. Come in, Moreira said. Is anyone listening? Alves asked. No one. Alves locked the bedroom door with a key and put it in his pocket. Moreira stared at him in shock and was about to ask naturally what had happened, when the lawyer silenced him completely with another, even more meaningful gesture. He took a revolver from his pocket and placed it on the table beside him. Then he sat down and began to speak. But before we hear what Alves said to his friend Moreira, let's go back a little and explain to the reader the event that caused the one about to begin. The day before, right after going to her room, Eulalia sent for her husband. He was already on his way there. What do you want? Alves asked with care. Eulalia fell into his arms, crying hard. What's wrong? He asked, worried. Eulalia couldn't speak. Alves felt anxious. Come on, don't cry. What's happening? He said. Let me cry, she whispered. These tears are from happiness. Happiness. Yes. I love you. Alves smiled and asked, Only now? No, she replied, drying her eyes. But only now do I understand it. I truly love you. I hadn't realized it until today. You are good, loving, generous like No other man. Alves felt moved and turned his face away. "Oh, don't hide," she exclaimed. "I know how much you're worth." "But why are you saying this now?" "You'll understand everything," she said, sitting down and inviting him to sit next to her. Alves sat beside his wife. "I didn't marry you for love, you know," she began. "But you slowly won my heart. Not that I noticed it. I didn't even expect the victory you were achieving over me. The reason I didn't marry you for love," she continued, "was because strange circumstances had separated me from a man I once wished to marry. That man is your friend Moreira." Alves jumped up from the chair where he had been sitting. Eulalia gestured for him to sit again. Alves looked at her, confused. "But why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Before I say more," she replied, "promise me you will obey me." But, do you promise?" "I promise." "Good. Then listen. That man Moreira came back from Europe, and you brought him to our house. 11 years had passed since he left. He used to be your friend, and I was not indifferent to him. These 2 reasons alone should have kept him away from our door. Still, he came many times. He should have respected me. But he didn't." As she spoke, Eulalia opened a small box and pulled out a letter. It was the first one Moreira had ever sent her, and she handed it to Alves, already open. Alves grabbed the letter with urgency. He read it quickly, crushed the paper in his hands and stood up, furious. Eulalia asked him to sit again. "I didn't reply," she said. "It was clear I shouldn't. I had 2 choices, show it to you or tear it up. I couldn't bring myself to tell you, and tearing it seemed wrong. I thought I might need to explain everything later." He kept asking for a reply, she continued. "And yesterday, in our own living room, he passed me this note." Her voice trembled slightly. "It was the betrayal, the shame of it, that made me scream. Just moments before, he was talking to you so calmly, pretending to be your friend. And all the while, he was trying to hurt you." Alves read the note. It didn't surprise him. It only proved Moreira hadn't changed, still the same false friend, still chasing something he had no right to want. Anger boiled inside Alves. But Eulalia tried to calm him, and slowly, she succeeded. "In truth," she said, "I should thank him for his disgrace. It was his betrayal that made me understand my own heart. I was already faithful. But now I know I truly love you. Your real love, your strong character, everything about you made my loyalty even stronger." Alves didn't answer with words. He walked to her and held her close, gently. Then he turned toward the door. "Where are you going?" Eulalia asked. He stopped. "You promised you would obey me," she reminded him. Alves burst into the room with a look of fury on his face, and Moreira froze. "This is impossible," Alves shouted. "Oh, I wouldn't say a word if I didn't believe you were about to cause some terrible disaster. For God's sake, listen to me. Our silence alone should be enough to punish you." Alves stood firm, but Eulalia had begged him not to do anything reckless. After much arguing, they reached a deal. Alves would not use violence. It was after this argument that Alves went to see Moreira. Moreira was naturally shocked when he saw the look on Alves' face. "What is this?" he asked at last. "Nothing serious," Alves replied calmly. "Just a few precautions." Moreira understood everything at once. He prepared himself to deny everything. But how much did Alves really know about what he had done? That was the question. Still, Alves began to speak. "You know what I've always thought of you, don't you?" Moreira nodded. "And do you know what I think of you now? I think you're a scoundrel. One of the worst kind." Moreira turned pale and tried to stand up. But Alves pointed a revolver at him. "Sit down," Alves said coldly. "You are a scoundrel, and I don't need to remind you of all the rotten things you've done. That's not why I'm here." Moreira sat back down, trembling. He no longer thought Alves had come to kill him. But now he feared Alves had come to force him into a secret duel with no witnesses. And Moreira had never liked duels. He hated them, in fact. Alves continued. "You will now write and sign this note. I hereby acknowledge that I owe my life to the mercy of Fernando Alves, whose honor I tried in vain to ruin." "That's impossible," Moreira cried, jumping to his feet. Alves smiled. "Then you die," he said simply. "Because I won't leave this room until I get one of two things, either that note or your life." Moreira paced back and forth, shaking with fear and anger. Then suddenly, an idea hit him like a flash. He would throw himself at Alves and strangle him before Alves could react. He would catch him off guard, take him by surprise, and leave him no chance to fight back or worse, to shoot. Moreira glanced at the lawyer and, moving slowly toward the table, suddenly sprang at his enemy. Alves had expected exactly this, so before Moreira could grab him as he planned, he was forced to step back, the barrel of the revolver pressed against his chest. Moreira let out a growl. "You're wasting your energy," said the lawyer calmly. "You can't get anything from me except one of the two options I already gave you. Choose." Moreira was, above all, a coward. His hesitation came not from doubt, but from fear of what would happen once the document was written. Once he understood clearly that refusing would mean death, it was obvious he would write it. Still, he dropped to his knees in front of Alves, confessed everything, and begged for mercy. Alves showed no pity. Moreira had no choice. He gave in. With trembling hands, he picked up the pen and wrote down what the lawyer dictated, signed the paper, and handed it over. "Very good," said Alves. "Your handwriting is shaky, but that only shows how afraid you were. Now, you wretch, at the first sign of betrayal, I can ruin you and kill you." Alves opened the door and left. Moreira stayed there, crushed, for half an hour. Then something changed. He stood up, grabbed a chair, smashed it, shouted threats, and cried out in anger and regret, but nothing helped. The damage was done, and the punishment was final.
Thank you for listening so far. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like our channel and click the bell to be notified whenever a new book is read. Have you heard of Machado de Assis? Machado de Assis, born in Rio de Janeiro in 1839, is considered one of the greatest writers in Brazilian literature and a master of psychological realism. He was a novelist, poet, playwright, and short story writer whose works explore the complexities of human behavior with irony, subtlety, and deep introspection. Among his most famous novels are Dom Casmurro, which questions truth and memory, and the posthumous memoirs of Brás Cubas, a satirical narrative told by a deceased man. Machado's literature often reflects the contradictions of Brazilian society, addressing issues like race, class, power, and identity in a sophisticated yet accessible style. Despite being born into poverty and facing racial prejudice, Machado de Assis rose to become the president of the Brazilian Academy of Letters and a symbol of literary excellence. His sharp wit and profound observations about society and the human soul make his works timeless and universally relevant. Today, he is recognized not only as a Brazilian icon, but also as a world-class author whose legacy continues to influence generations of writers and thinkers. Machado de Assis shows us that literature can be both elegant and critical, intimate and universal, humorous and profound. His stories remain as powerful and thought-provoking today as they were more than a century ago. Machado is a treasure of world literature, and through his voice, we discover the infinite layers of the human experience.